In this week, we want to speak about HTML document, about the hypertext markup language documents. We already saw that the World Wide Web thrives on its contents, the linked hypermedia documents. And these hypermedia documents, they are designed with a special language, and the special language is HTML, the hypertext markup language. This is a historical name. If we would have to name it today, we would speak about hypermedia markup language, because it's not only text that's designed, but it's the HTML. And HTML, it's a simple markup language for the description of hypermedia documents. Hypermedia documents which are characterized by hyperlinks and which provide the content of the World Wide Web. In this sense, the HTML language is the third basic component of the World Wide Web. A basic component beside the URI, the scheme for identifying the documents in the World Wide Web, and the HTTP protocol, the hypertext transfer protocol, which is used to provide the document from the server to the client and to send the request from the client to the server. HTML does not indicate a format or layout related description. HTML follows the idea that content description and layout description have to be separated. HTML in this separation is responsible for describing the structure of the content. HTML is very simple, and the simplicity is a major reason for the large popularity the web has gained in the past. This HTML language was originally based on SGML, on the standard generalized markup language. And to understand the HTML, we need to have a look to this SGML language. SGML was developed in the 1960s. It was in a time when the different computers came with different format and different formats for their documents. And people learned that it's important to have a format that is independent from a computer, that's independent from the vendor of that computer. And in that time, SGML was developed, and SGML offers a language describing various formats. We speak, in case of SGML, of a meta language, because if we look very exact to the SGML, we see it's not one simple language, but SGML is a possibility to define different languages and formats. So for every text, for every type of text document, independent from the manufacturers, independent from the devices, independent from the application, by means of SGML, it's possible to describe such document. And the basic idea of SGML is this separation of description of the document structure. The document structure, that's the logical division and the interdependency of the individual document parts, of the paragraphs, of the headlines, and other things, and the presentation of the document. And the presentation, that's formatting, how it appears when we print it, how it appears on a desktop. The advantage of this separation is that from a single SGML document, many different layout variants of this document can be created very easily. Why one needs this? Yeah, of course, you need a printed version of a document. You want to have it as a journal article. You want to have it as a book chapter. On the other side, you want to display it on a smartphone, or you want to display it on a large desktop of a PC. So one single document, one single SGML document can be provided in different layout variants. And to describe the layout variants, there are different possibilities, there are different language means in place. So we have a document, and document consists of structure, chapter, paragraphs, the headings, the figures, the table, and other things. And document is displayed on the layout. It's presented, and it's important what's the font size, what typeface are used, what line spacing, and others. And the basic idea of SGML and later HTML is to separate these two, the structure and the layout. SGML is a markup language, and the reason to call it markup language is that the structural elements are characterized by so-called markups. Markups are distinguished from the combination, are distinguished by a combination of special symbols, and such markups are stored inside the document file. So in between the text of the document, and to realize what is the text, what's the content, and what is a markup, such markup delimiters are used in case of SGML and HTML. These are these two symbols. So for example, the markup which characterize that now a new chapter start is this chapter markup, and then at the end of the chapter we can see this on this slash symbol. There is the markup which shows that this is the end of the chapter. In this way, it becomes easier for the automatic processing of the document. The interpreter can easily distinguish between a command given by a markup to interpret the next part of the document as a chapter and the content of that chapter. The relations between the structural elements of a SGML document are described by the SGML document tree. We will see such a document tree is important for the document object model. So here there is a combination of what is the headline of a chapter, what is the text of the chapter, what is the footline, and the relation between the different chapters. They can be described by means such document trees. By means of SGML, it's also possible to define document classes. To give an example, the document class of a book. So all the books are similar structured. They start with the title, then there are the authors, then content tables and the different chapters, then an index at the end. And not to give it as a task to each designer of a book, one SGML provides the possibility to define such a document class book. And then if one author starts to write a book, he can use this definition, it's so-called document type definition, which characterizes the general structure of a book. And then he only needs to fill up the special markups and special characteristic structural elements to design his own book. So let's come back to HTML. The HTML is also a markup language, and it's a markup language that's designed by means of SGML. And when we have a more detailed look, we see that HTML is much simpler than SGML, because HTML is not a meta markup language. HTML can be considered as one special document type. So in HTML, only those language elements are used that are important to describe web documents. And an important thing in the web document, important characteristic, is the hyperlink concept. So by HTML, these hyperlinks may be characterized. An HTML document is displayed by a browser. If you want to have a look to it, you use your browser, and your browser interprets your HTML. To be able to display an HTML document, the browser needs to understand the structure of this document. The browser needs an HTML interpreter to be able to identify the individual structural elements and then to assign them from the cascading style sheets to assign them certain format properties. For some historical reason, HTML does not consequently follow the strict separation between structure and presentation like it was given in SGML. The reason was in the very beginning, the texts were not including graphics and others. It was only alphanumeric symbols. It was only considered as a technical mean to provide information. So in the very first version of HTML, there are also some formatting instructions. But if you write a document, if an author writes today an argument, he should follow the strict separation between the structure definition by means of HTML and formatting instruction that are given by so-called cascading style sheets. Cascading style sheets, that is a language that provides format controls which are assigned to the markups and helps the interpreter, helps the browser to understand in which way a structural element described by HTML is displayed, for example, on the screen. If we look to the structure of an HTML document, then such HTML documents always starts with the HTML version information. And for specialists for you, this version information is the SGML document type definition from HTML. HTML document always consists of two parts, of a header and of a body. The header contains information about the HTML document. We speak here of meta information, and does not belong to the content, to the actual content of the document. It tells, for example, who was the author of this document, what is the title, what are some keywords characterizing the text, which kind of coding or language is used. And the second part, of course, very important part of the document is a so-called body. The HTML document body, and this document body contains the actual content of the HTML document. Basic elements of the HTML body, which describes the structure of the content, is headings, are paragraphs, lists, tables, forms, body text, special characteristics, images, hyperlinks. This is the special elements of the body of an HTML document. Like in SGML, the elements, the HTML elements, are identified by markups. That's a reason to call it a markup language. The markups are composed of a markup identifier, that's so-called tag, and are framed by the markup delimiters. And we already showed that, like in SGML, these are the HTML markup delimiters. Structural elements are framed by a start tag and by an end tag. So, for example, this is a start tag for a paragraph. It's included in this markup delimiters. It's a P, which stands for paragraph, and this is the end tag of a paragraph. It's the same like the starting tag. The only difference is that it starts with a slash. In HTML, the end tags can be left out if there is no lost in clarity of the interpretation of the document. Text can also contain additional information, so-called attributes. They can information, and these attributes provide additional information, provide control specifications, and explain what to do with this structural element. If we look to one of the recent HTML versions, that's version 4.0, there are approximately 80 different tags specified. And if we look for the successor of HTML version 5, then the number of such tags was increased a lot. So there are approximately 120 tags, but it is backward compatible. To give an example for the use of an attribute. Here we have a chapter of a document. The chapter is characterized by the ID CSS. And then this chapter starts with a headline. And the headline you see here, H1, the headline is Cascading Style Sheet. So for example, in a book about the World Wide Web, this is the headline of the chapter that explains cascading style sheets. And then inside the chapter we have different paragraphs. Paragraphs start with a starting tag, then we have the text of this paragraph, and then we have an end tag. And of course in the chapter we have different such paragraphs. There can be, of course, more parts in it, but I want to hold it very simple. And here is another chapter, is a chapter with the ID XML. You see in the markup, it's a tag, there is an ID identification edited. We have a new headline. Everything is possible with XML. You see that's the next chapter in our book about the World Wide Web. This is the end of the headline, same markup like in the beginning, but shown as an end tag by means of the slash. And then we have the internal structure of this chapter, the different paragraphs, and here the chapter is finishing. So this gives you a feeling about the use of HTML and how documents are described by means of HTML.